In the dark days of Israel, when fear ruled the palace and truth was hunted like prey, one quiet servant chose courage over comfort and faith over fear. Obadiah served in the court of King Ahab, a powerful ruler who had turned away from God, allowing Queen Jezebel to spread idolatry and hunt down the prophets. Jezebel's hatred for the prophets burned like fire, and she ordered their execution, turning the land into a place of terror where God's messengers were forced into hiding. Many prophets were captured and killed, their voices silenced by the queen's cruelty, and the fear of death spread across the nation like a dark storm. But in the palace itself lived a man who still feared the Lord, a man named Obadiah, whose heart remained faithful even while serving a wicked king. Obadiah was not a prophet, not a warrior, and not a king, but he carried a secret courage that would soon change the fate of many servants of God. When Jezebel's soldiers searched the land, hunting down prophets like criminals, Obadiah made a decision that could cost him everything he had, including his position and his life. Instead of turning away in fear, he gathered 100 prophets and secretly led them into caves, hiding them from the queen's deadly reach. He divided them into 2 groups of 50, placing them in separate caves so that if one group was discovered, the others might still survive. Every day, while danger lurked around every corner, Obadiah carried bread and water to the hidden prophets, keeping them alive in the darkness. Each journey to the caves could have been his last, because if Jezebel or her guards discovered his secret, his life would end immediately. But Obadiah did not stop, because he feared the Lord more than he feared the sword, and his quiet obedience became a lifeline for 100 prophets. The palace halls echoed with the queen's commands, but inside Obadiah's heart lived a silent prayer, asking God for strength and protection. He walked between 2 worlds every day, one filled with wickedness and power, the other hidden in caves, filled with faith and fragile hope. No crowds cheered for him, no songs were written about his courage, and no one in the palace knew the secret he carried. Yet in the eyes of God, every step he took toward those caves was a step of bravery, a silent act of resistance against evil. While kings issued orders and queens demanded blood, Obadiah chose to serve life, feeding prophets who would one day speak God's truth again. His story reminds us that not all heroes stand on battlefields. Some walk quietly through dark corridors, carrying bread and water in trembling hands. Obadiah risked everything, not for fame, not for reward, but because he knew that obedience to God was greater than loyalty to any king. In a time when fear ruled the land, his faith became a shelter, and his courage became a hidden flame that refused to die. Years later, when the drought struck Israel, the land grew dry and the people suffered, but Obadiah was still serving faithfully in the palace. King Ahab trusted him as the overseer of his household, never suspecting that this quiet servant had once defied the queen's bloody command. When the time came, God sent the prophet Elijah back into the land, and it was Obadiah who encountered him on a dusty road. The moment Obadiah recognized Elijah, he fell on his face in respect, amazed to see the prophet still alive after so many years. Elijah told him to go and announce his return to King Ahab, a command that filled Obadiah with fear and trembling. He remembered the king's anger and the queen's cruelty, and he knew that bringing such news could cost him his life. Obadiah pleaded with Elijah, reminding him of the risk he had taken to protect the prophets, hoping the man of God would understand his fear. He said, "Have you not heard what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets, how I hid 100 of them in caves?" Those words revealed the secret courage he had carried for years, a testimony of faith hidden behind the walls of the palace. Elijah reassured him, promising that he would appear before the king that very day, and that Obadiah would not be punished. With a fearful but obedient heart, Obadiah went to deliver the message, trusting that the same God who protected the prophets would protect him too. He walked back toward the palace, the sun burning above him, but the weight of courage burning even stronger inside his chest. Every step reminded him of the caves, the hidden prophets, and the nights he had risked everything to keep them alive. He knew that faith was not always loud, not always dramatic, and not always seen by crowds. Sometimes faith looked like a man carrying bread through the shadows, whispering prayers while danger watched from every corner. Sometimes courage was not in fighting battles, but in quietly protecting the truth when the world tried to destroy it. Obadiah's story is not filled with miracles or thunder from heaven, but it shines with something just as powerful: faithful obedience. He teaches us that even in corrupt systems, even in dark places, one faithful heart can still make a difference. You do not have to be a king, a prophet, or a warrior to serve God with courage. Sometimes all it takes is a willing heart, a quiet step, and the decision to do what is right when no one is watching. Obadiah could have ignored the prophets, pretending not to see their suffering, protecting only his own life and position. But he chose the harder path, the path of risk, the path of hidden sacrifice. Because of his courage, 100 voices of truth were not silenced. 100 servants of God lived to see another day because one man refused to bow to fear. In the quiet caves, the prophets prayed, sang, and waited. Sustained by the bread and water Obadiah brought them. Every loaf he carried was a message of hope. Every drop of water was a reminder that God had not forgotten them. And every step he took was a declaration that evil would not have the final word. In a palace filled with idolatry, Obadiah's heart remained an altar to the true God. In a kingdom drowning in fear, he became a quiet vessel of courage. He reminds us that true bravery is often hidden from the world. It is found in secret choices, silent prayers, and unseen sacrifices. Obadiah never stood on Mount Carmel like Elijah. He never called down fire from heaven. He never spoke to crowds or confronted kings with thunderous words. Yet his courage saved lives, preserved truth, and prepared the way for God's prophets to speak again. God sees the hidden heroes. He sees the servants who risk everything when no one is looking. He sees the quiet acts of faith that never make headlines, and he honors them. Obadiah's life proves that you can serve God even in the darkest environments. You can be faithful even when surrounded by corruption. You can protect truth even when lies rule the throne. You can be brave even when fear fills the air. His story is a call to courage, a reminder that faith is not just about what we say, but about what we do. It is about the risks we take to protect what is right. It is about the sacrifices we make for the sake of truth. Obadiah's hands carried bread, but his heart carried faith. His feet walked dangerous paths, but his spirit walked in obedience. His name may not be as famous as Elijah's, but his courage shines just as brightly. Because in the eyes of God, quiet obedience is never small. Every hidden act of faith matters. Every sacrifice is seen, every risk taken for righteousness echoes in eternity. So when you feel small, remember Obadiah. When you feel surrounded by darkness, remember the caves. When fear whispers to stay silent, remember the bread and water. Remember the man who risked his life every day. Remember the servant who saved 100 prophets. And let his courage inspire your own, because God still works through quiet heroes. God still honors hidden faith. And sometimes, the greatest stories are the ones told in silence. This was the story of Obadiah, the servant who risked his life, saved the prophets, and proved that even in darkness, faith can shine brighter than fear.